Hello, this is Mrs. Heinzman, and so what I'm going to do in this little video is talk about Derwent watercolors. They are more of a professional quality, meaning that the pigment is of a higher quality, probably less filler in the stuff that makes up the pencil, but basically it has, it's more, the light quality will last longer. So it's a higher pigment, meaning that the sun probably won't bleach out the colors like they would for the Crayola colors and some of the lower end type of watercolors. So if you have a more of a professional quality or a higher student grade watercolor, you might want to use it. If you choose not to use or you don't have the Crayola watercolor pencil set, you could use something like this. There's a number of different brands, but they'll work similar to what I'll be talking about. So one of the things you want to do is always make a chart. So what I did is I took my pencil. I basically did some boxes, figured out how many. I have 12 of them. And so on the top one, what I do is basically I come in and I'll show you with the blue. So what I want to do is always come in, and on that square, what you would want to do is you kind of come in, and what you're doing is a kind of a cross hatching. You kind of come downward, and you kind of fill in that box, and then what you want to do is I'm doing light motions. I'm not trying to do a lot of pressure. Then what I do is I kind of come back and then I'll kind of do a cross hatching going this way, trying to build up that area. So if you wanted to only use your colored pencils as a color pencil quality, then you're going to be doing a series of cross hatching. But for the chart, what I want to do is kind of have a transition going from light to dark with the color pencil. And then as I get here, I am going to give a little bit more pressure. I want to build that up so it's stronger, so that you can see the strength of the color when you lay it down. So this is the type of thing that you would want to do if you're making a chart. And then down below, I did the lower end. I came in here and I'm just adding a square that shows that color. And then what I'm going to do is I come in and I take my fresh water, and then what I do is I come in here and kind of drag that down so that I can see what happens when this gets wet but maintains most of its color. And then if I am dragging the water out, what that value will look like. And so I'm going to clean my brush. And so what I do with a lot of these colors is this is the color set that I'm going to use for what I'm going to demo. So what I'd like to do is I am going to get this wet. I'm going to come in here, kind of wiggle it like this and draw it down so I can see what kind of effect that color gives me. Clean my brush in the dirty water, take off a little bit of the moisture with the sponge, and then I'm going to drag this down to see how that is. I probably could add a little bit more water on that one. I'm going to do the orange. You're dissolving it and then dragging it down to see what that's going to look like. Clean water. I'm going to come back with my brush, kind of dissolve it and drag it down. Clean water. Dissolve it, drag it down so that you can kind of see what kind of effect that you get when you're going to want to dissolve it and kind of do a kind of a watercolor effect with it. And then if you choose not to do anything, this is kind of this chart up here. What I have up here, this is what it would look like if I choose only to do the pencil work and not add any water. This is what your colors would kind of look like. If I add water, this is what that chart looks like. I always want to have a chart on hand of any type of colored pencils that I might be used. Doesn't matter which brand, because they all are a little bit different, and so you want to have that kind of information. So then what we want to do is, this is kind of one that I got started, and so sometimes if I was going to work on a flower, I did outline this a little bit in pencil, and that's mainly so that you can see it. Normally I wouldn't do that harsh of a line. I would want it to be very soft, but for this purpose I need it to be a little bit stronger. So what I want to do, and the way that I work this, is that I'm going to come in here with the deep cadmium, and I am going to kind of come in here, and if I want a soft yellow, then what I want to do is maybe only give it 1 or 2 passes going back over it. But if I think I would like it to be a little bit stronger, then I need to keep going back over it so that I can make it stronger. And so I'm going to do this with several of them so that you can kind of see the technique that I kind of use when I'm using the colored pencils, and then I am adding another layer. So what I've done here is I laid, and you can see the underlayment alignment of this yellow, the first color. And then what I do is I come back in, and then I'm going to add a little bit of this orange. And I don't want it all over, I just want it in certain spots. So I'm going to add that. And then what I'm going to do is I can come in here, and I basically can dissolve it so that it kind of blends, and I have to let that dry. You cannot keep adding on when it's really wet, so what we want to do is let it dry. So what I did was, on here, this is about 3 or 4 different layers. So first I added the yellow, and then I came back in with the orange chrome. And then on top of this, what I did, and I'll show you here, because what I did was I came back in then with the other 2 reds. I have both a deep vermilion and the crimson lake. And so what I did was I had done the crimson lake and added water. Once that dried, then I came back in again, and just a very small amount here. Going to give some pressure, and then I can come back in with my water to dissolve it, and just put it in the areas that I wanted. So you can layer it and control the amount that you want in certain areas with just adding a little bit of your pencil. You can come back in when it's wet if you wanted to try it. That is a good technique to do. If it's wet, you can kind of come back in and add it while it's still a little bit wet. Sometimes if you thought that was too harsh, you can come back in with a little bit of water. You can see how that dissolves it, so that you can keep building it up to make it more intense and give it more saturation. And so I always, you can see how this is a little bit wrinkled a little bit. You can tell it's still wet. You really need to make sure that you allow your paper to dry very thoroughly before you go back and you add another layer of color on top of it. But when you can go back in with a little bit of wet pencil, but you have to be careful. Otherwise you are disturbing the fibers of the paper, and it really creates a terrible looking effect. And here, this color here was both using some of this grass green and this deep cadmium. And so again, that's usually using the Derwent watercolor pencils, and this is the type of chart that I use, and I also will provide the chart in my how-tos for you that I will be giving you, so that you can have it as a referral if you would like to look at it. And so the next one is going to be talking about another type of water color pencil, and I'll be talking to you soon.